Part 1. A World of Dreams. Sunday, May 13th, 1565. Castel Sant'Angelo, the Borgo, Malta. The situation, as Starkey saw it, was thus. The largest armada since antiquity, bearing the finest army in the modern world, had been dispatched by Suleiman Shah to conquer Malta. Turkish success would expose southern Europe to a wave of Islamic terror. Sicily would be ripe for the picking. A Muslim reconquest of Granada would not be unthinkable. Rome itself would tremble. Yet these strategic rewards be as they might, Suleiman's most passionate ambition was to exterminate the Knights of St. John, that singular band of healers and warrior monks known to some as the Sea Knights, and to others as the Hospitallers, and who, in an age of Inquisition, yet dared call themselves the Religion. The Grand Turks' army was commanded by Mustafa Pasha, who had broken the Knights once before, and in a citadel immeasurably stronger than this one, at the celebrated siege of Rhodes in 1521. Since then, Suleiman, who despite his many achievements placed his sacred duty to conquer the world for Islam at the forefront of his policy, had overthrown Belgrade, Buda, Baghdad, and Tabriz. He'd crushed Hungary, Syria, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Transylvania, and the Balkans. 25 Venetian islands and every port in North Africa had fallen to his corsairs. His warships had smashed the Holy League at Preveza. Only winter had turned him back from the gates of Vienna. No one doubted the outcome of Suleiman's latest jihad on Malta. Except, perhaps, a handful of the knights themselves. Fra Oliver Starkey, Lieutenant Turcopolier of the English Longue, was standing at the window of the Grand Master's office. From this prospect high in the south wall of Castel Sant'Angelo, he could see the complex geography of the battlefield to come. Encircled by surrounding heights, 3 triangular spits of land formed the boundaries of Grand Harbour, the Sea Knight's home. Sant'Angelo stood at the apex of the first peninsula and dominated the main town of the Borgo. Here were crammed the auberges of the Knights, the sacred hospital, the conventual church of San Lorenzo, the homes of the townsfolk, the main docks and warehouses, and all the bristling paraphernalia of a tiny metropolis. The Borgo was barricaded from the mainland by a huge curving enceinte, a curtain wall studded with defensive bastions and teeming with knights and militia at their drill. Starkey looked across Galley Creek towards the second spit of land, Lisola, where the sails of a dozen windmills turned with a strange and incongruous tranquillity. Squares of militia wheeled in formation, the sunlight winking from their helms, and beyond them, naked Muslim slaves, chained in pairs, strained to the overseer's whistle as they hauled blocks of sandstone up the counterwall of Saint-Michel, the fortress that sealed Lisola from the mainland. Once the siege commenced, the only communication between Lisola and the Borgo would be the fragile bridge of boats across Galley Creek. To the north, half a mile across Grand Harbour, at the seaward tip of the third peninsula, stood Fort St. Elmo. This was the most isolated outpost of all, and once under siege could only be accessed by water. The entire vista seethed with preparations: fortification and drill, excavation and entrenchment, harvesting and salting and storage, burnishing and honing and prayer. Master sergeants roared at the pikemen, and the hammers of the armourers rang. In the churches bells pealed, and novenas were held, and women prayed to Our Lady by day and by night. 8 out of 10 of the defenders were unblooded peasants with homemade leather armour and spears. Yet in the choice between slavery or death, the proud and valiant Maltese had shown no hesitation. A mood of grim defiance hung over the town. A movement caught Starkey's eye, and he looked up. A pair of black-winged falcons plunged earthward through the turquoise sky, as if they would fall forever. Then they broke and soared in unison and sailed without visible motion for the western horizon, and in the indefinable moment that they melted into the haze, Starkey imagined them the last birds in the world. A voice from across the spacious room behind him broke the spell of his reverie. "He who has not known war has not known God." Starkey had heard this unholy motto before. It never failed to disturb his conscience. Today it filled him with dread, for he feared he might soon discover that it was true. Starkey turned from the window to rejoin the conference. Jean Parisot de la Valette, the Order's Grand Master, stood at his table of maps with the great Colonel Lamasse. Tall and austere, in a long black habit emblazoned with the cross of St. John, La Valette was 71. 50 years of killing on the high seas had forged his sinew, and so, perhaps, he knew whereof he spoke. At 20, he'd survived the blood-soaked tragedy of Rhodes, when the tattered remnant of the Order had been exiled to the waves in the last of their ships. At 46, he'd survived a year as a slave in the galley of Abdurrahman. When others would have taken high office within the Order, and on the safety of land, La Valette had chosen decades of ceaseless piracy, his nostrils stuffed with tobacco against the stench. His brow was high, and his hair and beard were now silver. His eyes had been bleached by the sun to the colour of stone. His face seemed cast from bronze. To him, news of the invasion was like some rejuvenating elixir in an Attic myth. He'd embraced the prospect of doom with the ardour of a lover. He was tireless. He was exuberant. He was inspired. Inspired as one whose hatred may at last be unleashed without pity or restraint. What La Valette hated was Islam and all its evil works. What he loved was God and the religion. And in these, the last of his days, God had sent the religion the blessing of war. War at its apotheosis. War as manifestation of divine will. War unfettered and pure, to be fought to its smoking conclusion through every conceivable extreme of cruelty and horror. He who has not known war has not known God. Christ had never blessed the pursuit of arms in any fashion, but then there were times when Starkey was certain that La Valette was mad.